So my big idea is that governments across Canada should develop and implement what I call a ministry of failure. And that sounds a little crazy because I don't think anybody really likes the idea of failure, but when we think about it, that's actually what we need in public administration in Canada right now. We've got many big, thorny challenges facing us at all levels of government. So whether it's the future of work, climate change, homelessness, poverty, how do we boost economic productivity, all of these challenges are begging for new solutions. But in many ways, public servants and politicians in Canada are constrained by what they've done before. And what we're seeing is if we just do what we've done before, we're going to get the same results we've always had in the past. So I think what we really need to do is be bold, be innovative, and come up with some kind of an institutional response to this crisis of imagination, we could call it. And from my perspective, that's a ministry of failure. Let's set up an institution at each level of government that's specifically designed to fail, yes, but really the idea is here to try things. So a ministry of experimentation might be a better and more appealing term. So I think ministry of failure might have some negative connotations if you're the prime minister and you're forming your cabinet and you say, okay, you're Minister of Transportation, Minister of Education, and you are Minister of Failure. I think that might not work so well. So we might have to call it something different. But the idea here being that public servants, if we look at the results of polls of civil servants across the country, generally about half of the time, half of the folks say that they don't feel they're given the opportunity to be innovative enough. And across a number of other markers in terms of are you given space to try things out, the levels are not as high as I think we would like them to be. So rather than let's have each individual ministry set up to deliver services, try and experiment within their mandate, which hasn't really worked very well because they're scrutinized very closely and measured on success. They're not really measured on have you tried something new and did it work. Let's set up a new organization within each level of government that is really specifically emboldened to try out these new things. Is there a new way of doing skills training in Canada? Are there new approaches for First Nations education? Are there new approaches for any of these big thorny challenges we have? So from my perspective, that's something that I think would get systems moving in a more effective way when they can kind of outsource this experimentation idea, still in-house, but so that you don't have the deputy or the minister of a specific ministry feeling, well, I'm gonna be on the front page of the Globe and Mail if my idea doesn't work out. Okay, now you don't have to worry about that because you've got a ministry who's specifically tasked with trying things, and we're not expecting all of them to work, but occasionally, once in 5 times, once in 10 times, we might have an idea that actually revolutionizes how we deliver a specific kind of service or how we deliver or think about a specific kind of policy. So risk aversion is definitely one thing, and the flip side of that obviously is promoting innovation. If we don't actually embolden people and give them space to innovate and to experiment, it's highly unlikely they're actually going to try new things. They're much more likely, especially in a large bureaucracy, to try incremental approaches which move things forward in quite small ways rather than go for the big bang revolutionary approach. So I think those are really the two big challenges that we'd be able to tackle with this kind of approach. I mean, the third one is many of the problems that we're dealing with in Canada now are what we call wicked problems. They're cross-cutting, challenging. Nobody really actually knows what the right way of solving these problems is. So I think we need to try some new approaches. We can't just rely on our siloed 3 levels of government to look at issues in very small ways. We need to take some bigger picture, bigger bang approaches to this. And I think setting up institutions at each level of government which are specifically tasked with tackling challenging problems, being creative, being smart, being nimble would be one way of doing that. There are a number of issues that might make this a bit challenging in the conception phase, but once we actually get to moving forward with this idea, there's a lot of upside. Here, I think it would just really take the political will initially to say we're actually going to move in this direction, and also to make sure that we're focusing on coming up with ideas, ideating ideas. Those are the things we're experimenting with. What we don't want to experiment with is delivery in a way that we're not making mistakes on the delivery front, which could be avoidable. I mean, I think that's where often governments get tripped up. So like the healthcare website in the US, for example. So the idea was good. The execution of it was terrible. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about at the upfront stage, what's the new idea? How do we develop it? But we still expect implementation to go well. We're not encouraging people to make mistakes implementing a set policy or a new policy idea. So I think that's the important distinction.